Hey everybody, David Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest is Jamie Nau. He is the virtual CFO and director of the accounting team at Summit CPA Group. He's also a recent speaker at our Cloud Accounting Summit. But today's interview is going to be all about how he manages the team that he oversees, the cadences, the questions, the KPIs that he looks at to make sure that they're doing a good job. But having all said that, Jamie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been listening for a long time and excited to be on here.
Yeah, cool. Well, brief overview. What Summit do, and roughly, who do you serve, and what's the team size that you manage?
Yeah, so Summit is, we do multiple things, but really the area I oversee is our virtual CFO department. And so basically when we're doing virtual CFO work, the big thing is trying to be forward looking. So we focus on forecasting, we focus on KPIs, and we will talk about financial statements, but mostly with the lens of, okay, what happened last month and how do I make it happen again, or how do I change it in the future months? So that's really the area we focus on. And as part of that, we do accounting work, and we will do, any bookkeeping they'd like us to do. But really, what we're trying to sell and where our value is in that virtual CFO realm. And so that's kind of what we do. Our team that I oversee is about 35 people. So that includes accountants, CFOs, bookkeepers, and so it's a pretty good sized team. And again, we've been doing this for quite a while. I've been at Summit for 4 years. Started off as a CFO, and then as we got a little bigger, they wanted someone to kind of oversee the department and make sure that we were doing things consistently, and that's when I moved into the director role I'm in now.
Cool, awesome. And for those 35 people, what's the quick look at the org chart? I'm assuming you don't have 34 or 35 direct reports. So how does that break down?
Well, so we're kind of it's an interesting structure where I feel like my job is to support them. So I'm not really like, they don't directly report to me, but I just support all of them. But what we do have is basically two CFOs have up to 4 accountants working underneath of them. So basically they work in a pod structure. So 2 CFOs to 4 accountants, they manage a book of business between the 6 of them. And then within there's also a support team of bookkeepers that are working for them as well, which is more based on just hours. And so we have, obviously with 30 some people, we have 4 groups of that kind of work below there. But my job is to support all of them really. So again, they do have the CFOs that they work directly with on jobs, but it's my job to support all of them.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So knowing we have this pod structure, knowing the count, what does your week look like in terms of understanding how the team is doing? What kind of meetings or cadences are you putting into place, and what kind of questions are you asking them every week to know if they're on track or doing a good job?
Yeah, so I do, Monday is really the team meeting day. So we do a lot of team meetings on Mondays. And of course that starts off in the morning with a leadership meeting that I'm part of, where everybody kind of reports to the owners of how our department's doing. And then we kind of go through if there's any big issues and talk through that. And then,
sorry to pause
yep.
on that leadership meeting, how the department is doing. Is there a specific metric you report up to the owners, and if so, what's the metric?
Yeah, we do have goals. So our goals are, we look a lot at gross profit, and then we look at our clients' NPS score. So how our clients are rating us on obviously a scale from 1 to 10 when it comes to promoter score. So those are really the 2 metrics we focus on for my department.
Okay, awesome. So that's a main metric in the leadership meeting. Sorry, continue. I know you said you had a couple
No,
more.
that's great. Yeah, cut me off. I talk fast and I talk a lot, as you know, so just cut me off as I'm talking. So the next meeting is kind of an all company meeting. And this is one that's evolved quite a bit. It's been interesting. When we were smaller, we kind of went around the room and everybody talked about what their highlight was for the week before. And as we got bigger, that meeting just started taking longer and longer. So now we've evolved that meeting into really just kind of like a social half hour. We have a topic of each day. We have a joke each day. Or each week. Just things just to really help us get to know each other and make sure we're not losing touch. And so, again, the topic can be anything from what's your favorite breakfast cereal to, what's your favorite holiday, just really just a topic that people can expand upon a little bit. And we have the wheel that spins and calls on who's going to answer the question, who gets to bring the question next week. So that's just a real quick 30-minute meeting just to make sure we're still keeping in touch with the team and everybody feels like they're connected in some way.
Awesome. Okay, so you go leadership, then in the team, and the really goal of the team meetings, I think, is just to bring the humanity to the virtual environment, which is really cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So I didn't mention that. Yeah, we're completely distributed. So we're all over the United States, all different time zones, and we work in a virtual office which is really helpful. But yeah, we are 100% distributed. So doing meetings like that is super important to us.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, and then so what's the rest of the day look like from
So
like a
then after
perspective?
that, I go directly into a meeting with all of the accountants. So that's all of our, I guess, senior accountants, the ones that are kind of putting the books together and really answering our clients' questions on a day-to-day basis. And that's an hour-long meeting. And the first thing we do is we talk about our goals. So we, at any one time, we have 5 or 6 goals that we're working on, and a lot of them are based on projects. So when we moved to Jetpack, one of our goals was how many clients do we have in Jetpack? I would track that and say, okay, we have 110 clients. I want to have all 110 in there within 3 months. And so I would track how far we were, how many we had in there, and report back on that. And so at any one time, like I said, we have about 5 or 6 of those projects that we're tracking and trying to get to completion, and I'm working through that. And then I know we've talked about this in our podcast, but the other thing that we have in there, again, related to Jetpack is we track overdue jobs. How many overdue jobs do we have as an agency or as a firm, and making sure that that number doesn't get too high, because that doesn't mean that overdue jobs are a bad thing, but it means people aren't paying attention to Jetpack. And to me, it's very important that people are inside of Jetpack and at least paying attention to their jobs, moving them forward or closing them out when they get completed. So we track that every week and want that number, honestly, to be closer to 0. But if we're under 100, I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah, and you got to that under 100 kind of baseline just by feeling kind of the data over a couple
Yeah.
months. You're like, this feels like it's the appropriate level, appropriate expectation for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I'd like to get closer to 0, but when you have a team that large, it's pretty hard to do
Yeah.
to get them there. So
Well, to break it down for, somebody's listening, right? And maybe they're not overseeing 35 people, maybe they're overseeing 5, to make it relevant for them. Well, like what percentage of work do you think that represents for you?
I would say that's probably less than 10% of our work being
Yeah.
actually overdue.
Yeah. So that's, kind of the general guideline there. Somebody's listening. They're like, oh, I wonder if I want to be like Jamie, how should I think about it? Probably 10% or less,
Yep,
overdue as
exactly.
a benchmark, right?
Yep.
Um, with the ones that are overdue, how do you kind of distinguish between like these are acceptable overdue versus like, oh my gosh, this is an on fire overdue. We need to look at it.
So that's exactly why I'd like it to be at 0, because to me, I think overdue just means you haven't looked at it. Because really, what I would like my team to do with their overdue jobs every week is do one of a couple things. One is move it to a more reasonable deadline. So if I had
Mhm.
I was supposed to do a pipeline meeting with one of my clients and it got canceled this week, and I'm going to do it next week, just move that job forward to next week. It's not really overdue. We've talked to the client, we've taken care of it. The other thing is just not marking it off as complete. If we're not in Jetpack every day, if we're not looking through those jobs, we're just not marking it off as complete. And so I think if you're doing one of those 2 things with every one of your jobs, it means you're doing your job. So really what overdue means is, oh, I haven't even thought about this yet. And that's not acceptable for our team, because, our clients expect us to be doing these things all the time. And if it really is something that you haven't thought about, then was it really due on that date, or do we have an unreasonable deadline on there? So that's why I'd like that number to be as close to 0 as possible, because I don't really see much need for overdue jobs within the way we've set up Jetpack.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, and then how do you triage? If somebody says it's overdue, well, it really comes down to moving the deadline, right? If somebody's like, well, it's
Exactly.
overdue because I didn't have time to get to it, like I,
Right.
I was just overbooked or something came, it was out of scope or whatever. It's like, well, then move the deadline.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. That's kind of the way I manage it. And what we do, to be honest, is I will sit there in silence for the first 10 minutes of the meeting and have everybody just with their cameras on, working through it and being like, all right, let's get these jobs down. We're starting the meeting at 200. I want the number to be 100 before we even start this meeting. And it's awkward. At one meeting, I actually played annoying Jeopardy music, and it actually, I think, it drove me more crazy than it did any of the employees. But so I stopped doing that. But it really is just about giving them the time to focus on actually looking at those jobs and evaluating what's truly overdue and what's not.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of an effective or I would call it effective. Yeah, effective and common tactic that is. So, for example, on the flip side of things, um, managing pipelines is managing pipelines, whether you call them sales, marketing, production, what have you. So like, we used to do that, when we had to clean up a lot of our sales database. So we would run sales meetings and it would be like the first 10 minutes of the sales meeting was sitting in silence, cleaning up your pipeline. Now, did we want to sit in silence and watch people clean up? Of course not. And did they want to? Of course not. But it was to reinforce that this is a priority, this is important, And if we don't get this single thing done, then it doesn't make sense to talk about the rest of the stuff we have done, to get to.
Exactly. Yep.
Um, so, I love the tactic in that it really reinforces the priority. And again, it's something we've used for our own sales team, because deals that are sitting, it's like, it's just money dying, right? Client things that are sitting, money dying, right? Like, this is an expectation we're losing to ourselves and to our clients. Got it. So you get through those 10 minutes, you get it down to 100. What's the rest of the meeting look like?
Yeah, so after we go over our goals, and the goals is really just a quick recap of where things are at. I kind of give some commentary on, we really need to get this goal down. Let's work on it. Let's put it on our what we call an IDS. You maybe heard that before: identify, discuss, solve. So if it's a goal that's just not moving, I'll just throw it to that part of the meeting where we actually identify stuff, discuss it, and solve it. Because that I don't want to spend 40 minutes talking through goals. I just want to spend the 5 minutes. But if there are additional topics, I'll throw it to the end of the meeting, which is where we talk about that. And then after that, we move into our communication. So being distributed, again, communication is so key for us that, you have to say things 7 times. And this is all of our management and leadership's belief. You have to say things 7 times for everybody to hear it, because, some people might not be in that meeting. Sometimes when you're distributed, I feel like I've talked to like 5 or 6 people about the same thing. And I'm like, oh, everybody knows now. Everybody knows what we're planning on moving towards. And we made that mistakes one too many times. So this is a meeting that everybody's in, and we just have different announcements and different communication things that I bring to the team, because I'm just coming out of that leadership meeting. That leadership meeting, we might have talked about a new hire. We might have talked about something the whole team needs to go. And I just report it and say, hey, by the way, we hired a new CFO. They're starting on Monday. This is their name. This is who's going to be working with them. And I just do those announcements that kind of come from the previous meetings. And then there's some more standard announcements where I let our IT guy talk, let him kind of update on what the IT team's working on. And then anything else really that the whole team needs to know.
Got it. So IDS, you're off track on a goal, gets thrown onto identify, discuss, solve list. What's an example of something that'd be thrown on there, and how would you triage it?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been working on for quite a while was we've implemented a cash flow tool, which I know was also at the summit. We implemented that, and we were about 80% of the way there. So there were just 10%, 20% of our clients that couldn't get moved over to the cash flow tool. So, my question was, instead of what's going on there, let's talk about what we need to do to move these clients past the finish line. So instead of talking about that in the goal section, let's just have a conversation at the end for, one senior. Maybe this one senior has been super successful. Like, how did she move all of her clients across the finish line? What could other people do to get there? So that's the type of thing, is if a goal is stalling or if a goal is just not moving at all, we need to talk about what I'm missing as a leader to get them there. So
got it. And 9 out of 10 times, the majority of times, it's because a goal's off track. You put it in IDS, and then you ideate or discuss how to essentially unblock it. What is it going to take to unblock it?
Yep, exactly. That's and then there's other, again, that's kind of the next section of the meeting, is we go around the room, give everybody an opportunity, and we kind of do this two parts of this. One, everybody has an opportunity to say what their work highlight was for the previous week. And the reason we do this is because we want to get ideas flowing. So I might have one senior accountant that says, oh, I had this great meeting with the client. They were struggling with their cash flow. And I implemented a 1-hour meeting where I'm going through these details with them of accounts payable and other things. And it went really well. Another senior might be listening saying, oh, wow, I have a client that has that same problem. Maybe I could implement something like that. And so we do have them do a highlight section for each of them. And then each senior also has an opportunity to add to that IDS. So again, if there's something that they're working on or some problem they've run into, they can add it to the IDS, which usually there's about 15, 20 minutes at the end to really discuss through those. So there's plenty of opportunities in this meeting to solve issues that are going on. And again, some of them come from me and some of them come from them when they do their around the room portion.
Cool. That's awesome. Any other meetings that happen on Monday, or any other touch bases that happen on Monday?
So the last meeting we do, so basically those are all early in the day. We all kind of go our separate ways. And then at the end of the day, I meet with just the CFO team. And this is our structured, it's usually about 20 minutes. And we just have 3 topics we talk through. And it's very structured, just talk through those 3 topics, not a lot of discussion on them. And then those 3 topics, one is overdue financial statements. Want to know if any financial statements are lacking or are going slow, what's causing them to go slow, anything the team can do to help. 2, we talk about client happiness. If there's any clients that we're worried about or any clients that we think we need to put some extra attention on, we add them to a list. We actually have a little Trello board where we track those clients that are possibly unhappy or having issues that we need to help out with. And then 3 is just kind of talk about any team, same thing. If there are any team members we're worried about their happiness or worried about their performance, and kind of talk about that from the CFO level, so we can really help out in one of those 3 areas. And again, really usually a pretty quick meeting, but it's just making sure we're talking about those things every week.
Yeah. You said it's 20 minutes. Is it quick because it's like usually things are pretty good? Because you said it's more of, because you say if a team member's not happy or they're whatever, that's typically a longer than 20-minute conversation. So does that sometimes evolve if that comes up, or like how do you treat something like that?
Yeah. So the reason it's 20 minutes is because this is more of our identifying stage. And so if we're talking about an employee that we're concerned about, we have a Friday meeting where we really do the actual discussion on it. So we have a separate meeting that we move those items to, where if a client's having a lot of problem, and that's a full hour meeting that we do with the CFOs. We just want to make sure on Monday that we're bringing up these issues and know what we're going to talk about on Friday. And then Fridays when we actually discuss and solve those things.
Got it. And it lets you sit with those for a couple days to.
Yeah, and if they're really urgent, obviously, a lot of times it's, okay, we're worried about this employee. That means it's my job and it's our HR job to meet with them and talk with them and figure that out. Or if we're really worried about a client, then it's my job to call that client. So a lot of times the action items are pretty easy to identify and say, okay, Jamie just needs to call that client and make sure that if they really aren't happy, or try to, come up with some solutions on that. But, oftentimes the solution is pretty quick. So it's not like we're just sitting on that information, but, we do a lot, oftentimes just table that to Friday if it's something we can work on. So
yeah, cool. And then you go into Tuesday. Are you running things like daily huddles? Are you a daily huddle type person?
I'm personally not. What I try to do is check in with my team as much as I can. But like I said, with 35 some people, I don't have time to check in with everybody. But our CFOs do daily huddles with each of their accountants each day.
Okay.
And so
that little pod will do it.
Yeah, so the pod will do it, and basically one CFO will check with the couple accountants they're working on. It's more of, this is what's due this week, this is the priorities, let's make sure we have the financial statements a couple days ahead of time this week so I can review them before the client sees them, and just kind of those reminders that each of the CFOs should be having with their accountants.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the pods are running, you said weekly check-ins?
Yeah, weekly check-in. Yep.
Awesome.
And then other than that, it's just really just the client meeting. So we spend a lot of times with our clients, and obviously we a lot of our clients we have weekly touches on. So when our CFOs are seeing that senior prior to that meeting, if we have a financial statement meeting on Thursday, you've probably talked with that senior 3 times that week, because you have to, one, see the financial statements, then talk about the comments you've had, and then prior to the meeting, just be like, all right, are we ready to go? Let's jump into this meeting. And so you're kind of having touches throughout the week just on individual clients as well. But we find it really important that you have those, even if it's just 15 minutes of, let's look through Jetpack, what's due this week, do we need to change any deadlines, or need to change any timelines? Let's go through and do that.
Cool. So Monday really sets you up for the entire week, and then it's kind of either ad hoc touch points or there's pods. So these are the 5, 6. But that's a weekly huddle. People say weekly. Huddle. Sometimes they get in this daily mindset, but you guys are in weekly, so it really is like Monday kickoff, and then you have a Friday kind of issue resolution meeting.
Yep.
With the senior folks on the CFO team.
Yeah, so that's right? So it's me and the CFOs and the owners, and just really talking through any issues. And one of the main reasons we do that on Friday is because we try not to have client meetings on Friday, or recurring Friday meetings on Friday with clients. We try to say, okay, if I'm going to schedule recurring meetings with clients, it needs to be Monday through Thursday. And then, if something gets bumped and the client can't meet on Wednesday, you're welcome to reschedule that for Friday, which is kind of nice because your Friday is open. You can easily reschedule stuff to Friday, but it gives us time to do some of these things where we can have these weekly check-ins where we really just, the week's over, relax a little bit, and just kind of talk through issues, and really we get a lot done in those meetings. And it's funny because we used to do our whole CFO meeting was just that Friday, and it was mandatory, and we probably had like 50% people coming. And then when we did it the way we're doing it now, where Monday's the mandatory meeting, and now Friday's optional. Like if you have something going on, you can't be there. But since we've made that move, it's probably been 100% attendance for like months now. It's crazy how making it optional makes people just, I don't know what changed in people's mindset, but now that it's optional, everybody comes. So it's been a unique change for us.
It is really amazing how so much of this world is like Tetris,
Yeah,
in some ways. Um, because I was thinking the other day, just at a cultural level, like we're always going through organizational tweaks and updates. We're trying to optimize, but it's like, when you get the right people in the environment, running things just feels easier, right?
yeah, for
Right.
sure.
If you've ever had a couple bad hires and you go through this and you're like, oh my gosh, and maybe I'm not the great man, I'm not a great manager, maybe I'm not giving clear instructions, maybe all of a sudden, like, you let the person go, you're like, oh God, this is like actually like, yeah, of course I can personally improve, but like this is so much easier, right? And that's at a personal level, that's a big thing. But it's like also with meetings too. If you change the cadence, if you change the timing of it, if you can't change the agenda, all of these little tweaks all of a sudden turn like a meeting that was kind of dragging or slow or hard to get cohesion behind, and like then all of a sudden it's just like rocket fuel.
Oh, for sure. No, I agree 100% with that. Like it's the structure of our meetings has evolved since I've taken this role, and I've made plenty of mistakes, and then I've learned from them. And the other thing I didn't mention, it was, you've probably heard of a level 10 meeting before, where you
Yeah.
rate the meetings at the end. That's kind of what we do, and that's what our structure is loosely based off of. But we rate the meetings at the end from 1 to 5. So anybody that gives a rating under a 4 has to say what went wrong, what we could do better. And so that, I think that's helped our meeting structure a lot, where we've gone from an average of like a 3.8 to pretty much getting a 5 every week in all these meetings, because we've tailored it and we're not afraid to change the way we do things and what we're talking about. So that's been a big change for us, is just rating the meetings every single week, and not ever skipping that step either.
Yeah. Well, final question, as you're developing as a leader, as you're developing as a manager, what resources, books, whatever, do you look at? Who do you follow that helps you kind of sharpen your skill set? Is there a certain author, thought leader, influencer that you're looking at?
Yeah, I'd say there's two books that I look at as a leader, and again, they're more process books, but because that's a lot of what I think leadership is it's setting up processes for people to succeed. So to me, the number one book is E-Myth. So E-Myth, there's the story in there, and I'm sure a lot of people have read it, but there's a story in there about the hotel, about how the hotel, he goes there and has the same experience every time he's there, and how he did that. And so that's a book that I based my whole management philosophy on, is like, how can I create that binder? How can I create that hotel for our clients, and really think through that. And obviously Jetpack's a big part of that, but a lot of the stuff we do is based on the E-Myth book, and that's one for me that has been huge. And I read that article, I have it printed on the wall. I'm reading that hotel story. I read it probably once a week just to remind myself that process is that important. So that's one of them.
Really cool. We'll try to link up the story specifically in the blog.
Yeah, there's you can get a PDF on it for sure. And then the other one is Getting Things Done. So Getting Things Done is my personal management organization philosophy, but also it's one that whenever someone is getting those reviews where they're just not organized, I sit down with them and I walk through how getting things done works, and then also walk through it how it works for us and as a firm, or how you can make it work at Summit. So that's one that we've really started to roll out for everybody, because when you're managing anywhere from 5 to 20 clients, it's pretty hard to really get things done. So it's important that you have some kind of structure in place, and that's the one that we feel works the best.
Cool.
So.
Well, if somebody's listening and they want to reach out and say thank you for coming on, learn more about you, what's the best way for them to connect with you or Summit?
Yeah, so definitely for me, email. So jnau, N-A-U, at summitcpa.net. So that's obviously the best way to get hold of me. We're also, summitcpa.net is our website, so you can reach out to us on there. And we're all over Twitter. We're everywhere, so we're pretty easy to find. So.
Awesome. And if you're running around, skipping around, hopping around, jumping around, whatever you may be doing, playing basketball, I think basketball is going to make a comeback, by the way. I don't know where popularity of basketball is in the United States, but I don't know. I just have a feeling like it's going to
You're speaking
grow.
my language. We've
Oh,
talked
really?
enough. I'm a big basketball guy, so.
Oh, no kidding. So,
Yeah.
this is totally derailing the podcast, but my wife, so I have like he's almost 2. She got my son a play basketball hoop when he was like 6 months old, like way before he could ever like
Yep.
use it. And it was probably the best like accidental Father's Day gift of all time. Like, and especially in the quarantine, because we don't have a basketball hoop in my house. I used to go to the gym, I would shoot basketball, but
Yep.
it's like now at least I have this mini basketball hoop. Maybe one day my son will like it. I don't know, but either way, it's been a big win
I,
for me.
I have a 10-year-old, and I'll tell you, the mini basketball hoop, like now that he's 10, we shoot every day, and we're out there every day shooting hoops, and it's got us through the quarantine, like just finding different drills and different ways to play one-on-one with him and have fun. But yeah, it's been a big part of the quarantine for us. So.
Yeah, awesome. Well, then maybe that's you, and maybe you have your AirPods in, and you're just shooting in the backyard by yourself. You couldn't jot down all the notes. Well, you can go to jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com podcast.com/blog. We're going to do a full write-up of the interview. We're going to link up the resources Jamie talked about. We're going to list out the kind of cadences, meetings, questions he asks. Maybe we'll include an Amazon affiliate link for small basketball hoops if that's what you need in your house as well. Who knows? But if you enjoyed this interview, leave a review, help us get the word out about the podcast. If you loved it, share it with a fellow firm owner, leader, partner that needs to hear this type of information. And Jamie, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.